Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I am the astrologer here with PersephoneReturns.com, and I just wanted to do a really quick video introducing myself, explaining what I do, and giving you sort of a rundown of what to expect if this is your very first astrology reading. And so if you've stumbled upon this video on YouTube and you're not planning or interested in booking a reading with me in particular, you can still get a lot of good information about what to expect if this is your first astrology reading or if you're just getting into astrology. If you skip past the beginning parts where I talk about, my background, and if you sort of skip past the end where I talk about the reading options that I offer. But for everybody else, this is mostly just intended to be on my website, so that way all of you can sort of get to know me before you decide to book a reading if that's something that you want to do. And so I'm just going to very briefly keep this short, keep this quick, keep this, to the point. I'm going to be talking about, who I am, how I got into astrology, my astrology style, and then I'm going to be getting into what to expect in your first astrology reading with me, or, with most astrologers. And then I'm going to talk about the different reading options I have and what I offer. That way you guys know what you have to choose from. And I get a lot of, emails and messages asking me, which reading is the best one for me to choose right now. I have this, this, and this going on. And so hopefully, this video will help to answer some of those questions as well. All right. And so I've been studying astrology for many years. I didn't intend to be an astrologer. My background is actually in psychology, and I do have a master's degree in clinical psychology. And so for quite a few years, I thought that I was going to go into psychology, right? So I was studying psychology. I initially thought that when I was getting my master's that I would go on to get my PhD. I was hoping to get a degree in counseling. I realized very quickly through my training in counseling that I didn't necessarily want to do that. And then I got really, really interested in doing research in psychology and specifically in behavioral neuroscience. And I did that for a little while, and I realized that, that wasn't necessarily for me either. So I wound up here as an astrologer, which is not at all what I planned to do. And I actually came into discovering and studying astrology when I was in graduate school. And so I was having sort of a difficult time. I was a little bit lost. I went through this period where every single thing I tried to do just kept going wrong. My housing situation was a giant disaster mess. My friendships were not working out so well. I was making really bad decisions. I didn't like the work I was doing, and I didn't even know if I wanted to continue with the degree that I was pursuing. And there was just a whole series of events that went wrong during this couple month period of time. During that time period where I was feeling lost and confused, and there was a lot of difficulties going on as well. And a friend of mine was really into astrology. She was into all sorts of different things that I just kind of wrote off as woo-woo. She would look at crystals and, herbs and, different things. And I just kind of, didn't really think much about it. But one day I came over to her house, and I hadn't really told her about anything that had gone on. And she started describing to me a series of transits that were happening and the effects that those transits would bring for me. And it was just too spot on. It was like, what is this, right? So she recommended a book to me. I started studying the book and looking up all my different planetary placements. And from then on, I was hooked because it was just too accurate. And I was studying psychology, and this book was describing me better than anything I had ever learned in any of my psychology classes. It was helping me to understand myself better than anything that I'd ever learned in my psychology courses. And so from then on, I was just obsessed with studying astrology. So I've been studying myself for many, many years. And, after I did some self-study, I kind of decided at one point that this could actually be something that I could pursue in terms of a career. And that's when I started seeking out a teacher. And so I learned from primarily self-study, and then I switched to learning from a teacher named Robert Phoenix, who is an astrologer that you might know from Gaia TV. He has his own podcast radio show called The 11th House. He has his 15 Minutes of Flame show. He has his YouTube channel, all that. So you might know him from somewhere. Also, sometimes he's on my channel because we do still maintain a friendship. He's a really great guy, and you'll see him on here on my YouTube channel from time to time when I do interviews with him, and also on Astrolog's YouTube channel, which I am featured on quite regularly. Sometimes we'll do interviews on there. So I learned a lot from Robert. He helped me take everything and piece it all together. And from there on, I had a lot of confidence in being able to do readings for people. I started doing readings by donation, and then I decided this is something I wanted to pursue professionally. So I've been doing astrology professionally for about 3 years, and I've been loving it and loving connecting with all of you. I've been connecting with people all over the world, helping people in a lot of different ways, getting really great feedback. And I've also been featured on Conscious Life News with some of the articles I've written. I've been featured on Astrology.com, obviously, and through her YouTube channel. I do weekly or now bi-weekly videos. And I've been featured on Robert Phoenix's website too. So, I've been around a little bit doing some stuff. Since then, I've been studying a lot more. I continue to study on my own. It's not a thing where you just learn, for a few years about astrology and then you're done. It's like the thing about it that I love is that you're constantly learning. There's an endless array of knowledge. And even if you could learn everything that there is to know about the planets that we have right now or that we know about right now, we're always discovering new planets, new bodies. Every few years, there's something new that you could dive into, research, and learn about. And I'm also studying right now medical astrology, which is like looking at how the planets affect the body in terms of, medical stuff like illnesses and whatnot. And I'm doing that, primarily on my own and also through a teacher and some courses through a teacher named Lynn Coiner, who is a brilliant medical astrologer and astrology researcher. And if you haven't heard of her and you're kind of an astrology nerd like me, I highly recommend you check out her work, check out her website, because she's absolutely brilliant. So much great knowledge, very detailed. She's a Virgo also. I think she might be a double Virgo. So, I really like her very detailed, very sort of nuanced approach to the astrological interpretation, and the fact that she roots it all in research, right? She makes sure that it works, and she does her own research, and she creates new techniques through the research that she does. And I think that that's really cool. And so that's a little bit about how I got into this, my background and all of those things. And so that's how I got into astrology. That's what I'm doing right now, and I absolutely love it. And so in terms of what to expect when you get your first reading from me, a lot of my clients come to me having never had an astrology reading before, so they're not quite sure how this works or what to expect. And so when you book your reading, first and foremost, I'm going to ask you for your birth information. So you do need to have an exact time of birth along with your date and location. Sometimes people don't have an exact time. If that is the case for you, either contact the county that you were born in, the registrar's office, or the hospital if you're younger. If you're under 25, the hospital might still have your records, and order a birth certificate copy. And if you are born in America in particular, you're probably going to have a very accurate birth time. Some other countries you might not get a birth time, or it might not be quite so accurate. That's okay. It's something to start with. You can also ask your parents, your family members, anyone who's there and present at the time of your birth to give you an estimate of a time. And so that's going to give you a pretty accurate starting point as well. So those are two things that you can do if you don't know the birth time. But for the most part, people are pretty easily able to access that information. And so I'm going to ask you for your birth information, and I'm going to ask you for where you're living currently in case they want to cast a solar return chart, which is a way of looking into the future based on the alignments that are occurring when the sun reaches the same point and position that it was at when you were born. And so that's one way to get a sort of generalized feel for what's coming up for the year. I use a lot of solar return. I do a lot of transits for predictions and forecasts and things like that. And when I do the reading for you, we're going to dive really deep into, what's going on with you personally, right? I can look at all sorts of things. I can look at aspects related to your career, your relationships, your home and family situation, your friendships, your passions, your purpose, what you came here to do in life, what gets you fired up. I can also look at your strengths, right? So you can play to your strengths. I can tell you what your weaknesses are and how to best overcome those weaknesses in order to turn them into strengths. I can tell you about challenges that you might be facing right now and into the future, and also really good, beautiful energy that's coming in for you, so you can harness that and take advantage of it while it's there. And so I'll give you a whole spectrum of things. Another thing I really love to do is is called astrocartography, and this is looking at the astrology of place. And so when you relocate to a different location from where you were born, that actually changes up the energy. And so what I do is I look at the astrocartography, which is the different lines that go through the different places. You don't need to know a lot about what that actually means, but there are different planetary lines that go through different locations for different people. And so the energy will change based on the location and the lines that are going through a certain place. And so you can learn a lot about your experience in that location just by looking at those lines, but you also need to look at it in conjunction to the relocation chart. Which relocates your chart to that location. It's very literally a relocated chart. And so it changes, it doesn't change the planetary alignments or what signs they're in, but it changes the context. It puts it in different houses. So it can alleviate certain difficulties and it can enhance some of your strengths a little bit more so. So if you want to, achieve something specific, you can move to a specific location to make that a little bit easier. And so astrocartography is something I'm very interested in and I love to do as well. So relocation readings, I look at all sorts of things. So the options that I do actually have are, general natal chart and transit readings. I do a 30, 60, or 90-minute option. The 90-minute is awesome because we get to dive super deep into your chart, every single aspect and alignment, as thoroughly as possible. And we get to go over your transits for the coming year so you know what's coming up. 60 minutes, we can still do a lot of that. 30 minutes is good for a specific couple of questions. So if you have 2 or 3 specific questions or certain topics that you want me to look into for you, 30-minute reading is perfect for that. I also offer a single question astrology reading where I dive really deeply into a very specific question for about 15 minutes, maybe less. And so that's how you're going to get some really in-depth information if you just want to know about something really specific. I also do transit readings, again, 30 and 60-minute transit readings. The 30-minute reading will go over about the next 6 months and what's coming up for you then. The 60-minute reading will do at least for the next year, and then some of the major transits that go beyond that. And then I also offer solar return readings, which is a very generalized big picture reading that gives you an idea of what's coming up for you, kind of the big picture plan for the year ahead. And then I also offer career-focused readings in 30 minutes, relationship-focused readings, and then of course I have the astrocartography where you can either choose some locations that you're really interested in knowing about, or you can let me choose the best ones for you. And so that's what I do. That's what the options are. And when we are doing a reading together, I do keep all the information confidential. I do the readings via Skype or Zoom meetings, and I can also do them via phone if you are in the United States. And you'll always get a recording of those readings, so you'll be able to go back and listen because I do give a lot of information and I have a lot of clients that want to take notes and remember everything, so you don't have to worry too much about remembering everything that way. And it'll be a one-on-one situation, so we'll be able to talk to each other. I'll ask some questions, right? It helps me to dive deeper into your chart and to give you a more thorough, more detailed interpretation of what's going on. So I'll ask you different questions. You can ask me questions. So it'll be very, interactive. Or if you prefer, and if your time zone is a little different than mine, you can do a pre-recorded video reading, which I actually really enjoy doing. That way I can look at things a little bit more objectively, right? And so I do really enjoy doing the pre-recorded readings as well. So that is always an option. And it'll be like a video like this where I'm sharing my screen and you get to see everything. And I can answer your questions via email, before and after the reading. And so that's what I do. And those are the different options. And I hope that you found this helpful if you are thinking about booking a reading with me. And if you have any questions about, what I do, what to expect in the reading, what type of reading to, choose, anything, or if you just want to say hello, you can feel free to email me. My email address is heather@persephonereturns.com, and I'll put that in the description of this video below. And I hope to connect with you in the future, any of you, all of you. All right, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you all have a really beautiful day. Bye.